How to SEO your web page for Google. Hello and welcome back again. Now, before I show you how you can optimize your web copy, let's look at this slide and let's understand the fundamentals of on-page optimization. Now, we know at the beginning of this course, I've told you that SEO actually started by customer profiling. So therefore, before we optimize and understand how we can further guide Google to understand our web copy, we must know and create our landing pages for our potential customers, because at the end of the day it is their user experience that will determine if they buy from you, if they call you, if they contact you, and so on. Okay, you know this, I know this. That is why I had to include this particular slide before we go and look at what else we can do on our landing pages. Okay, because thus far we've been learning a lot and we actually know why certain things happen when it comes to Google. Okay, so let me open up a sample page as we've been taking, and I'm just going to tell you how certain elements of a web page is important. As we know, Google is only limited by the web elements that it comes across. Okay, we know this. So therefore, this is heading 1. Heading 1s are very important web page elements, because we must understand that on internet there are standards, web standards set out by w3.org. Okay, so therefore heading 1s are a very important web page element. So thus Google must look at that as it's having more of an importance than the text that you have within your web copy. So therefore, but we also know that we shouldn't just create heading 1s. Let's say if we are targeting online marketing for small business owners, okay, or let's say these are the keywords that we were interested in, for example, then if we have our headings like this is not smart. But this is actually smarter, because you can utilize heading 1s if you include your keywords along these lines, as in sprinkle them within. It takes a bit of practice to utilize headings as what you're seeing, okay, but nonetheless, if you really take a look at what you're seeing right now, it isn't actually designed for Google per se, and yet it does address the needs of Google rankings. As we can see, we have the keywords. Okay, so there may come a time that you think, oh, you know what, how can I create that catchy heading, right? How can I create that catchy heading 1, right? If that's the case, simply identify. I'm just going to give you one example that I sometimes utilize, right? I find out the most read magazine that is related to a particular online industry that I want to create heading 1s for web pages, right? As soon as I identify whatever magazine this is, I simply browse around online, have a look at the current month's issue, and on the front cover, if you look really carefully, most often people who are creating those magazines, the front cover has limited screen real estate. They need to include their images, but they also include that text, catchy text, right? And from that you can incorporate that into your own heading 1 creation. Okay, for instance, some of them have, let's say we're in sports industry and we want to create heading 1 that is catchy and so on. Perhaps we can say, 5 reasons why Tiger Woods is best golf player, and you see that heading on that magazine and you think, okay, you know what, how can I include that into my online business and heading, right? something like that. Or perhaps I can say, okay, 5 reasons why small business owners must utilize online marketing in 2014, and so on. Meaning you will never run out of ideas for creating clever heading ones that pulls in your ideal customers to consume your web copy. Okay, it doesn't matter what products or services you're selling, because if you can't get your ideal customers to read your web copy, well, then they're not going to buy from you, they're not going to buy from me. So but utilizing headings can be done along those lines. Okay, not only you address Google, as we can see in this example, but you also communicate effectively through your headings. You can use images in that first eyeful, no problems, but nonetheless remember, heading ones are very important web elements for Google rankings. Okay, so what's next? Internal linking. Your navigation menu structure is something different, and Google does follow the links within it, right? So therefore, if you can include some of the keywords that you are interested in. Okay, you may have a website that consists of 1,000 different pages. Okay, if that's the case, surely you're not going to have every single one of them in your navigation menu. Okay, that is why we know importance of using categories properly, as I've shown you. But nonetheless, remember, keywords within your internal links are very important. Okay, so therefore utilize. Another element that you can further guide Google is perhaps you can emphasize cleverly some of the keywords that you're targeting on your web pages. As we can see, this is italic, that means it's emphasized. Okay, but the fact that I am emphasizing that, if the content and communication of my web copy permits, so that means it flows within that copy, then emphasizing is another method to say, you know what, Google, place a little bit more emphasis on these keywords, because that's what I've done for you. I emphasize them for you. Okay. Also, you can use strong tags to say, you know what, they are something different as far as all the other keywords on this page is concerned. That's why you bold them, strong tag them, right? So that's another method as well. You can use heading 3. As we can see, we are utilizing heading 3. But remember, as I've said, we are designing our landing pages for our ideal customers and not for Google. That's why this heading 3 isn't optimized at all, because whatever the message I have below it doesn't allow me to do that. If that's the case, don't worry about it. As long as you have heading 1, that's okay, because you may be optimizing a product page, right? So that means perhaps the entire text is only this much. If that's the case, you're not going to be able to have heading 2 or 3 or 4, but you should definitely have heading 1. Okay, so that's the whole idea. Meaning, don't just think too much about on-page optimization. Okay, because let's say, a lot of people say, oh, internal linking is important. Yeah, it is important, and that's navigation menu structure is for that, and not your web copy. Because you have to think like your ideal customer reading this, right? Let's say they read, they read, and they come, let's say, here. And if you emphasize that, that's great. But some people tell you to link that to other pages. Thus, that's internal linking, okay? Never utilize internal linking within your web copy, thinking that it's gonna help your Google rankings, okay? Because you shouldn't design your landing pages for Google in that sense. Your web copy is for your ideal customers to read through. And if you put a link here, that means you want them to go and visit that link. So that breaks your communication. Because once they're gone to another page, because you utilized internal linking along those lines, then you haven't really gotten them to read whatever you're offering on your page. So thus, then that's another click. But it's not an ideal click that you want. So you can utilize internal linking, no problems. Perhaps around here somewhere where whatever was above it was good enough for your ideal customer to read, and then you can include an internal link taking your ideal customer to somewhere else. If that's the case, meaning if your content allows you to do that, then that's great, do that. But try to avoid using internal links a lot within your web copy, thinking it's just gonna help your SEO. It may, but it's not gonna help your conversions. Okay, so therefore stay within reason. As we know, we can strong tag them, because then that's a different web element than just normal text. Okay, so that is another way to send a signal. So you can do it along these lines. All right, you can also, if we can see here, we are using that synonyms. Synonyms are a great way for you to not only target related terms, because people may search them, okay, but also not, let's say on your web page you have, let's say, 600 word text, okay, let's say, okay, and within that, let's say you end up using your most important keywords, let's say 4 times, okay, that may break your communication, as in it may be a little bit excessive. But if you utilize synonyms, as in words that are close, then that's actually much smarter, isn't it? Because some people may actually type this in Google instead of online marketing. So therefore you can utilize it along those lines. All right, now what's next? You can, let's say you can bold this. I've just highlighted so I could show you. Okay, you could bold it along these lines. That means you don't just have to bold or emphasize the keywords of importance to you. You can, if the communication allows, you can emphasize the whole thing. You can emphasize the whole entire different words, meaning it doesn't just have to be this here. Okay, so you could further guide Google along those lines. Let me close that. Okay, you could do it along those lines as such, or as such, knowing that anytime we do things like that, what we're saying is, whatever I am given bold element or emphasized element, whatever, whenever I do this, it is different. That means that's what you're saying to Google. Treat it different to all the other things that you see. Okay, so another thing is optimizing our images, which we will do in the next video session, and we're going to make it work with what we've been doing so far. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And what else we can do? Yes, okay, I've got heading 2 here. Okay, so as you can see, you can, if your content permits, you can use headings along these lines too, as in this is heading 2, whereas this is heading 3, as you can see. Okay, it doesn't matter, meaning as long as you logically break your web copy up. Okay, so that means there is no heading 2 above this. It makes no difference. Headings are important. That's what I'm saying to you. If your content is, well written and thick content, perhaps 300, 400, 500 words, then it allows you to have more headings. If that's the case, use them. Instead of just using large text, use headings instead, because Google looks at them as well. Now, your call to actions, as I've said, internal linkings, you have to be very intelligent of using them, as in don't just use them for SEO sake. Okay, flash your call to actions exactly when you know that your ideal customer has read your copy. It doesn't matter what the product or service you're offering. Okay, so you can, if you so choose, utilize keywords within your call to action when it's appropriate and not before. Okay, footer links, yes, if you can, it depends on your website structure, you can utilize internal linking on your footer, meaning perhaps on your first navigation you only had let's say 5 different links branching out to different categories, but perhaps within your footer element you can perhaps include those extra links, okay? Because we know how Google sees our web pages, meaning the higher the web elements, as in navigation menu is high above the web elements side of things, right? Headings are surely above the text and so on, okay? So the higher the web element, better it is for you to utilize the keywords with it. Now we know how to do that, and I've just shown you non-technical, easy to do web page, web copy optimization, as in where we can and how we can send strong signals, not just for Google but also for our ideal customers, right? So design your landing pages for your customers. Now I've opened up my internet browser, okay, and I am logged into a typical WordPress site. All the things that I've just shown you in this video tutorials can be done by anyone, meaning if you're using content management systems, you can easily optimize your landing pages as I've shown you, okay? So titles are that, the keywords in the URL are easily accomplished by almost all content management systems, okay? Web copy is just a web copy. Your headings can be included, your text and images, or heading 3s or heading 2s, okay? So everything that I've just shown you can be done by anyone, because it is non-technical SEO that I've shown you, okay? Now before I close this, let me also show you one more thing. Let's utilize Google's define feature. Let me ask Google to define what marketing is to me. As we can see, you can utilize Google like a dictionary, and I actually always utilize this because it gives me synonyms, okay, related words. So I strongly encourage you to start utilizing these when you want to identify some keywords, okay? Because let's say when we look at the synonyms here, right, at times you may come across some keywords that you can find from using this feature and then include that within your web copy, because as far as Google is concerned, that particular keyword that you're getting a synonym from, as far as Google is concerned, it is most closely related to that term, okay? You can utilize that on your web pages when you find things like that, as in you should utilize synonyms, whether it's in your description as I've shown you, whether it's in the titles, whether it's in the web copy, whether it's in the backlinks, anchor text, and so on, okay? Nonetheless, it's there for you. Check it out and utilize it. Now we know exactly how we can send further signals to Google and also our potential customers, okay? And that's how you're meant to optimize your landing pages. In the next video session, I'm going to go a little bit more technical side of things, but remember, you don't need to, okay? Meaning what I've just shown you is good enough for you to include with everything else and combine it and utilize it for your own online business, right? But if we want to go a little bit deeper, I'm gonna then show you some more technical tips and tricks where we can further guide Google to understand what our landing pages are all about, and I'll do that in the next video session.